Why do grown men retreat into their childhood bedrooms when life demands they step forward? What drives the psychology of those who avoid responsibility at every turn, even when they desperately crave respect and success? The answer lies in understanding how avoiding responsibility becomes a survival mechanism, one that ultimately destroys the very life it's trying to protect. You know him. Maybe you are him. The 35-year-old who panic calls his parents whenever his car breaks down or his landlord sends a notice. The man who ghost vanishes from romantic relationships the moment someone mentions commitment or future plans. The individual who masterfully deflects every conversation about responsibility with humor, video games, or sudden emergencies that always seem to require his immediate attention elsewhere. This psychology of avoiding responsibility isn't about laziness. This runs deeper than procrastination or simple immaturity. What you're witnessing is the psychology of the child-man, a grown adult trapped in perpetual adolescence, desperately avoiding the weight of true responsibility while simultaneously craving the respect and authority that only comes from embracing it. But here's what unsettles most people. Our modern world doesn't just tolerate this behavior, it actively encourages it. Think about it. When did comfort become our highest virtue? When did we decide that emotional discomfort should be avoided at all costs, that challenge equals trauma, and that growth should feel effortless? Somewhere along the way, we created a culture that treats adulthood like an optional upgrade rather than an inevitable transition. The Child-Man archetype represents more than individual failure. He embodies a collective regression, a society-wide retreat from the difficult work of psychological development and emotional maturity. Every swipe, every click, every convenience designed to eliminate friction from our lives also eliminates the very resistance that builds character. You see this everywhere now. Apps that solve problems before you even recognize them. Parents who remove every obstacle from their children's paths. Educational systems that prioritize self-esteem over competence. Workplaces that offer endless accommodations but rarely demand excellence. We've built a world where avoiding responsibility feels not just comfortable, but virtuous. Yet something within you rebels against this, doesn't it? Some part of your psyche recognizes that this path leads nowhere meaningful. That's why you're here, listening to these words, sensing that beneath the surface of modern convenience lies a profound emptiness. Jung understood this tension between comfort and growth. He recognized that the parts of ourselves we refuse to confront, our fears, our inadequacies, our capacity for both failure and greatness, don't simply disappear when ignored. They fester in the shadows, growing stronger, more demanding, until they begin controlling our choices from the darkness. The child-man exists in this shadow realm. He's not evil or malicious. He's simply incomplete, a fragment of what he could become, frozen in time, terrified of the very experiences that would liberate him from his self-imposed prison. But what creates this arrested development? What transforms a child's natural curiosity and fearlessness into an adult's paralysis and avoidance? By the end of this exploration, you'll understand exactly why you've been running from responsibility, how modern society engineered this retreat, and most importantly, the precise steps to break free from this psychological prison and reclaim your power as a fully realized adult. The answer isn't found in individual weakness or moral failing. It's embedded in the very fabric of how we've structured modern life, and more importantly, how we've redefined what it means to be human in an age of unprecedented comfort and safety. If you've ever felt that gnawing sense that you're capable of more but somehow can't access that potential, if you've noticed yourself shrinking from challenges that should energize you, if you've wondered why responsibility feels like a threat rather than an opportunity, then you need to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. If you feel that restless stirring in your chest, the one that whispers you're meant for more than endless retreat, then join me on this journey. Subscribe now, because we're about to walk through the very shadows that have been chasing you your entire life. The child-man's story is also your story. His fears are your fears. His potential is your potential. The question isn't whether you'll recognize yourself in what comes next. The question is whether you'll have the courage to do something about what you discover. What if I told you that your biggest fear isn't actually failure, but success itself? Stay with me here. When you think about taking on real responsibility, what happens in your body? Your stomach drops. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your mind immediately starts calculating escape routes. But why? Most people assume it's fear of failure driving this reaction. They think you're scared of messing up, of disappointing others, of proving you're not good enough. But that's just the surface story your mind tells you to avoid confronting the deeper terror lurking beneath. The real fear? Growth itself. You see, every time you accept genuine responsibility, you're forced to kill off a version of yourself. The version that could always blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for your situation. The version that lived in the comfortable space of unlimited potential because you never actually tested your limits. Here's what nobody talks about. Embracing responsibility means confronting who you really are, not who you pretend to be. Think about it this way. Imagine you're offered your dream job tomorrow. The salary is perfect, the role excites you, everything aligns. But there's a catch, you have to start Monday, and if you fail, everyone you know will witness it. How does that feel? If you're honest, it probably feels terrifying. Not because you doubt your abilities, but because success would demand you show up as someone you've never consistently been before. Someone reliable. Someone accountable. Someone who can't hide behind excuses when things get difficult. This is the psychology of avoidance at its core, not avoiding failure, but avoiding the person you'd have to become to succeed. The Child-Man understands this instinctively. He's not lazy or incompetent. He's terrified of discovering his actual limits. As long as he doesn't try, he can maintain the fantasy that he could do anything if he really wanted to. The moment he commits fully to something meaningful, that safety net disappears. But here's where this gets truly devastating. Every time you avoid responsibility, you're not just staying the same, you're actively shrinking. Your capacity for handling stress decreases. Your confidence in your abilities erodes. Your tolerance for discomfort withers away like an unused muscle. You've probably noticed this in your own life. Tasks that once felt manageable now seem overwhelming. Conversations you used to handle easily now feel draining. Simple decisions that shouldn't matter somehow carry enormous weight. This isn't weakness, it's the natural consequence of emotional atrophy. When you consistently avoid the very experiences that build psychological strength, you become less equipped to handle even basic adult situations. And here's the cruel irony. The longer you wait to face responsibility, the more overwhelming it becomes. The bills don't stop coming. The relationships don't maintain themselves. The career opportunities don't pause for your readiness. Life keeps moving forward while you remain frozen in place, watching your options narrow with each passing day. Can you see the trap you've created? By avoiding responsibility to protect yourself from discomfort, you've guaranteed maximum discomfort down the road. You've traded temporary ease for long-term suffering. But there's something even more devastating happening beneath the surface. Each time you retreat from responsibility, you're sending yourself a message: I can't handle this. I'm not capable. I need someone else to take care of this for me. Over time, this becomes your core belief about yourself. Not consciously, but in that deep, primal part of your psyche that determines how you show up in the world. You begin to see yourself as someone who needs protection rather than someone capable of protecting others. This shift is everything. It's the difference between approaching life from a position of power or from a position of victimhood. Between being someone others look to for solutions or someone others have to constantly rescue. Remember what I promised you at the beginning? We're halfway there now. You're starting to see why you've been running, how the patterns formed. But we're not done yet. Next, we need to understand how your addiction to comfort has been slowly poisoning your potential for greatness. Your smartphone knows you better than you know yourself. It knows exactly when you're feeling bored, anxious, or challenged. The moment any discomfort arises, your hand reflexively reaches for that device. Within seconds, you're scrolling through carefully curated content designed to make you feel better without actually changing anything about your situation. This isn't an accident. You've been trained to see discomfort as the enemy. But what if I told you that discomfort is actually your greatest ally, and by avoiding it, you're slowly suffocating your potential? Here's what happens when you make comfort your primary goal. You stop growing. Not gradually, not eventually, immediately. Growth requires tension, resistance, friction. It demands that you push against something that pushes back. Think about the strongest person you know, not physically, but mentally and emotionally. Someone who handles crisis with calm, who makes difficult decisions without falling apart, who others naturally turn to when things get tough. I guarantee this person didn't develop these qualities by avoiding hard situations. They were forged in the fire of repeated exposure to discomfort. Now think about your own relationship with discomfort. When was the last time you deliberately chose the harder path because you knew it would make you stronger? When did you last lean into a difficult conversation instead of avoiding it? When did you tackle a challenging project without looking for shortcuts or escape routes? If you're struggling to answer these questions, you're not alone. Most people haven't willingly embraced discomfort in years. They've become so skilled at avoiding friction that they've forgotten how to function when it's unavoidable. This is the comfort trap, and it's more dangerous than any external enemy you'll ever face. Because unlike external challenges, this one feels good while it destroys you. Every time you choose the easier option, you get a little hit of relief, a small dose of satisfaction. Your brain interprets this as success, even though you're actually moving backward. Personal growth requires you to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. There's no way around this. Every worthwhile achievement in your life has come from pushing through resistance, not avoiding it. Your best relationships were built through difficult conversations. Your proudest accomplishments came from tackling challenges that initially seemed beyond your capabilities. But somewhere along the way, you learned to interpret discomfort as danger. Your nervous system started treating every challenge like a threat to your survival. Instead of seeing difficulty as an opportunity to grow stronger, you began seeing it as something to escape from as quickly as possible. This is where Jung's concept of the shadow becomes crucial to understand. The shadow isn't just your dark impulses or negative traits, it's everything about yourself that you refuse to acknowledge or develop. When you consistently avoid responsibility and discomfort, you're not just postponing growth. You're actively banishing your potential into the shadow realm. Your unlived life doesn't just disappear. It festers in the darkness, creating that nagging sense of dissatisfaction, that feeling that you're capable of more but somehow can't access it. The person you could become, stronger, more capable, more resilient, exists in your shadow, growing more powerful and demanding with each day you refuse to face him. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're feeding the shadow while starving your actual self. You become weaker while your unlived potential becomes more vivid and tormenting. This is why avoiding responsibility creates such deep psychological pain. You're literally at war with yourself. The comfortable life isn't comfortable at all. It's a kind of psychological hell where you're constantly aware of your diminishing capacity while being too frightened to do anything about it. You become a spectator to your own existence, watching opportunities pass by while you remain paralyzed by the very comfort you thought would protect you. But here's what gives me hope for you, that restless feeling you can't quite shake? That voice that whispers you're meant for more? That's not your enemy, that's your future self calling to you from across the divide, reminding you that you have the capacity for far more than this diminished existence. The question is, will you answer that call? Walk through any college campus today and you'll witness something unprecedented in human history. Adults being treated like children, and worse, demanding to be treated like children. Professors acting more like parents than educators. Students who can solve complex equations but can't handle criticism or disagreement without emotional collapse. This isn't progress. It's regression on a massive scale. But before you shake your head at kids these days, understand this: they didn't create this system. We did. Every helicopter parent, every participation trophy, every time we solved a problem for someone instead of teaching them to solve it themselves, we built the infrastructure of incompetence. Here's the uncomfortable truth: modern society has weaponized compassion against competence. We've convinced ourselves that protecting people from discomfort is kindness, when it's actually a form of psychological crippling. Think about your own childhood. When you fell off your bike, what happened? You probably got told to get back up and try again. Maybe you received a bandage and some encouragement, but the expectation was clear: you handle your own problems. Now watch how children are raised today. The bike never gets a chance to fall because someone's running alongside, holding it steady. And when problems arise, which they inevitably do, there's always an adult ready to swoop in and fix everything. This creates what psychologists call learned helplessness, but on a societal level. Entire generations have been trained to see themselves as victims of circumstances rather than authors of their own destiny. They've learned to scan for problems in their environment instead of building strength within themselves. The result? Adults who collapse under pressure that previous generations considered normal. People who can't handle a difficult conversation without needing therapy. Individuals who require constant validation and support for basic life functions. This isn't about being harsh or unsympathetic. It's about recognizing that true compassion sometimes requires short-term discomfort for long-term strength. A muscle that's never stressed doesn't grow. A mind that's never challenged doesn't develop resilience. A person who's never faced real consequences doesn't learn wisdom. But our institutions have forgotten this fundamental truth. Schools prioritize self-esteem over achievement. Parents focus on happiness over character development. Employers offer endless accommodations instead of clear expectations. We've created a culture that treats emotional fragility as a virtue and psychological strength as somehow oppressive or unrealistic. The damage goes beyond individual weakness. When you have a society full of people who can't handle responsibility, who collapses under stress, who requires constant management and protection, what kind of future are you building? Who's going to lead? Who's going to innovate? Who's going to make the hard decisions that every functioning society requires? If everyone is trained to be a dependent child, where do the capable adults come from? This is why the Child-Man archetype is more than just a personal problem, it's a civilizational crisis. We're mass-producing psychological invalids and wondering why nothing seems to work properly anymore. Consider how this plays out in relationships. When two emotionally underdeveloped adults try to build a life together, what happens? Instead of partnership, you get mutual dependency. Instead of growth, you get stagnation. Instead of facing challenges together, they enable each other's avoidance patterns. The workplace becomes a daycare center where managers spend more time managing emotions than managing productivity. Politics becomes a contest of who can promise the most protection from life's difficulties. Culture becomes obsessed with comfort and safety rather than excellence and achievement. But here's what's truly tragic. This system doesn't even accomplish its stated goal of reducing suffering. People today report higher levels of anxiety, depression, and life dissatisfaction than previous generations who faced objectively more difficult circumstances. Why? Because humans aren't designed for lives without challenge, responsibility, or meaningful struggle. We're built to grow through adversity, to find purpose through contributing something valuable to the world, to develop strength by overcoming obstacles. When you remove these elements, when you create a perfectly safe, unchallenging environment, you don't create happiness. You create existential emptiness. You create people who have everything they thought they wanted but feel hollow inside. This is the real cruelty of our current system. In the name of protecting people from harm, we've protected them from the very experiences that would make them truly powerful, truly capable, truly alive. The good news? You don't have to remain trapped in this system. Understanding how you got here is the first step toward breaking free. And that's exactly where we're going next, toward the path that leads from childish dependency to genuine personal sovereignty. Here's the truth that will either liberate you or terrify you. No one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not society, not some future version of yourself that magically appears without any effort from present-day you. The cavalry isn't coming because you are the cavalry. You always were. This realization is the beginning of your transformation from child-man to sovereign adult. It's the moment you stop looking outward for rescue and start looking inward for power. It's terrifying because it removes all your excuses. It's liberating because it returns all your agency. But transformation isn't about dramatic gestures or sudden personality changes. Real change happens in the small, daily choices that either reinforce your old patterns or build new ones. Every time you face discomfort instead of running from it, you're depositing strength into your psychological bank account. Start with this question: what's one responsibility you've been avoiding that you could handle today? Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances improve. Today. Maybe it's making that phone call you've been postponing, sending that difficult email, having that conversation you've been dreading. Dealing with those bills sitting on your desk. Whatever it is, do it before fear has time to mobilize its army of excuses. Here's what happens when you take that first step. You realize that most of your fear was worse than the actual experience. The anticipation was more painful than the reality. Your imagination had turned a manageable challenge into an insurmountable obstacle. But something deeper occurs as well. You send yourself a different message. I can handle this. I am capable. I don't need to be rescued. This new message begins to compete with the old story of inadequacy and helplessness. This is how you rebuild psychological strength, one small act of courage at a time. Each time you choose responsibility over avoidance, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways that support capability instead of helplessness. The process isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong and capable. Others, you'll want to retreat into old patterns of avoidance. This is normal. Growth happens in waves, not straight lines. The key is to keep moving forward even when progress feels invisible. Here's a practical framework for your transformation. First, identify your avoidance patterns. Where do you consistently choose comfort over growth? What responsibilities make you feel most anxious? These aren't weaknesses, they're your growth edge. They're showing you exactly where you need to focus your attention. Second, start small but be consistent. You can't leap from avoiding all responsibility to handling everything perfectly. But you can handle one challenging task each day. One difficult conversation each week. One scary decision each month. Third, embrace discomfort as information, not as an emergency. When you feel that familiar anxiety rising as responsibility approaches, don't interpret it as a stop sign. See it as your nervous system recognizing that growth is about to occur. Breathe through it and move forward anyway. Fourth, celebrate your wins, especially the small ones. Each time you choose courage over comfort, acknowledge it. Your brain needs to associate taking responsibility with positive feelings, not just with relief at having survived the experience. Most importantly, understand that becoming a sovereign adult doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming someone who can handle imperfection, your own and others. Someone who makes mistakes but takes responsibility for them. Someone who faces uncertainty without collapsing. This is the ultimate truth about personal power. It comes not from avoiding failure but from developing the capacity to handle it gracefully. Not from eliminating problems but from becoming someone who can solve them. Not from seeking comfort but from finding strength in discomfort. The child-man believes he needs perfect conditions to act. The sovereign adult acts regardless of conditions because he knows that waiting for perfect circumstances is just another form of avoidance. Jung understood this transformation as the integration of the shadow, accepting and developing the parts of yourself you've kept hidden. Your capacity for strength, for leadership, for handling whatever life presents. These qualities don't emerge automatically. They must be consciously chosen and repeatedly practiced. Your future self, the one who's been calling to you from across the divide of your comfort zone, isn't a fantasy. He's a possibility. But he only becomes real through your willingness to abandon the safety of your current limitations and step into the uncertainty of your true potential. The question that will determine everything about your life moving forward is simple. Will you remain a child waiting to be taken care of, or will you become an adult capable of taking care of others? The choice has always been yours. The time to make it is now. What responsibility have you been avoiding that you're finally ready to face? Share it in the comments below, not just for accountability, but to inspire others who are fighting the same battle. Your courage might be exactly what someone else needs to take their first step toward freedom. The child asks, "What will happen to me?" The adult asks, "What can I make happen?" Which question will you live by?